Hi, this is Steve with Thresher Media Group. Welcome to When You're Ready to Listen. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the truth about God, things you may not have understood, may not have been taught, or quite frankly, had a very hard time believing. And since our entire relationship with God rests on believing, it is important we learn how to separate the truth from the many lies and fictions that abound within the religion of Christianity. So when you're ready to listen, tune in and discover a pathway to freedom, encouragement, life, and hope. A couple of quick reminders. Thresher Media Group is a 501c3 public charity, and we rely entirely on donations from our listeners. If the Spirit leads you, I encourage you to support this ministry. It's easy to do. Just go to the website, threshermediagroup.com, and click the Donate tab in the header. I would also encourage you to go to Amazon and pick up a copy of Liberating the Book of Revelation, Returning to the Source of the Message. This book is intended to help us all know what the Spirit said and how He said it. This book is focused not so much on interpreting the book of Revelation, that is what this podcast is for, but on accurately representing the book of Revelation in the manner in which the Spirit originally spoke it to John. It's available in all formats, hardback, paperback, ebook format, and as an audible. And with that, let's move into episode 137, Revelation 17, verses 1 through 2. In our last podcast, we addressed the seventh vial of judgment that was poured out on the earth. With this judgment, the wrath of God is complete. It was dramatic. There were flashes of lightning and sounds and peals of thunder and a great earthquake, such as there had not been since man came to be upon the earth. The great city was split in 3 parts, and every island fled, and the mountains were not found. Then came the hail. Huge hailstones, about 100 pounds each, rained down upon mankind. Still, men blasphemed the God. Now let's pick up in Revelation 17. Revelation 17 overview, judgment of Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth, the administration of the kingdom of the beast. Let's go ahead and read Revelation 17, 1 through 18, so we get the full context before we move into verse 1 and 2. Then one of the 7 angels, who is now having the 7 vials, came and spoke with me, now saying, "Come here. I will in the future show you the judgment of the great harlot, who now chooses to be sitting on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed acts of immorality. And those who are now dwelling on the earth were caused to be made drunk with the wine of her immorality. And he carried me away in spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman that chose to now be sitting on a scarlet beast, now being full of blasphemous names, now having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was being clothed by choice in purple and scarlet, and was caused to being adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, now having in her hand a gold cup, now being full of abominations and the unclean things of her immorality, and on her forehead a name caused to being written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman now being drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the witnesses of Jesus. When I was seeing her, I wondered with great admiration, and the angel said to me, Why do you wonder? I will in the future tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that is now carrying her, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that you saw was, and now is not, and is now about to now come up out of the abyss and now go to destruction. And those who are now dwelling on the earth, whose name was not caused to have been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will in the future be caused to wonder when they are now seeing the beast, that he was and now is not, and will in the future choose to come. Here is the mind which is now having wisdom. The 7 heads now are 7 mountains on which the woman now chooses to sit. And they now are 7 kings. 5 fell, 1 now is, and the other has not yet come. And when he may come, he now must remain a little while. The beast which was, and now is not, is now himself also an 8th, and now is one of the 7, and he now goes to destruction. The 10 horns which you saw now are 10 kings, who have now not yet received a kingdom, but they now receive authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. These now have one mind, and they now give the power and authority to the beast. These will in the future wage war against the Lamb, and the Lamb in the future will overcome them, because he now is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those with him called and chosen and faithful. And he now says to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot now chooses to sit are now peoples and multitudes of nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which you saw, and the beast, these will in the future hate the harlot, and cause her to being desolate, will in the future make her naked, and will in the future choose to eat her flesh, and will in the future burn her up with fire. For God has put it in their hearts to execute his purpose by having a common mind, agreeing to give the kingdom to the beast until the words of God will in the future be caused to be fulfilled. The woman whom you saw now is the great city, which is now reigning over the kings of the earth. In this chapter and the next, it can be easy to find oneself lost and completely confused by the imagery, the names, the roles, the changes in the code, and so on. Therefore, to simplify things up front, it's best to understand that Babylon, the great city, Babylon the Great, the mother of all harlots and abominations of the earth, is the system of apostate religion, including, and more specifically, the religion of Christianity. The woman, this harlot, is the spirit that is behind the system. So in effect, they are one. The system and the spirit move as one and cannot be separated from one another, just like the beast and the kingdom of the beast are one and the same, and are not viewed separately. The image of the harlot is one of the most controversial images in the book, largely because experts try to figure out the who and assign this image to a specific institution. But the Spirit utilizes metaphors to explain metaphors. Therefore, the who is not as important for us to figure out than is the what. If we learn what she does, what she is like, what she peddles, and so on, then we will know the who, no matter the form in which she chooses to present herself to us. Knowing the what will also help us understand who it is that we are to flee. The demise of Babylon the Great was predicted previously by an angel that is even now saying to the inhabitants of the world, "Fell, fell, Babylon the Great, she who has made all the nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her immorality," or harlotry. The angel warns the peoples of the earth that this harlot is on her way to complete and utter destruction. Therefore, this angel's cry serves as a warning to the inhabitants of the world to stay away from her and to no longer indulge in her sexual pleasures. To clarify, the code uses sexual immorality as a metaphor for spirituality gone bad. Then, with the pouring out of the 7th bowl of God's wrath, this great city is split into 3 parts as God remembers Babylon and gives her the cup of wine of his fierce wrath. Strangely, this image of the prostitute or harlot is tied to what we discovered regarding the number of the beast, 666. For it speaks of the religious traditions of men, which are wielded by those who are extremely clever to garnish wealth, power, control, or at least extreme influence over the souls of humanity. The desires for wealth and power, wrapped in the cloak of all that is God, are the 3 pillars which support this great city, Babylon. Spirituality is the cup, and inside the cup is the corruption, deceit, damage, violence, and so on, caused by a lust for wealth, power, and control over others. And perhaps with the great city being split into 3 parts, God is decoupling the power bond, and he separates the power from the wealth, from the religion, thereby completely dismantling the pillars which support this great city. The great harlot, Revelation 17, 1-2. Then one of the 7 angels, who is now having the 7 vials, came and spoke with me, now saying, "Come here. I will in the future show you the judgment of the great harlot, who now chooses to be sitting on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed acts of immorality, and those who are now dwelling on the earth were caused to be made drunk with the wine of her immorality." With the conclusion of the vision regarding the 7 vials of wrath, John is redirected to another scene. This is somewhat of a flashback that dives into the details of this harlot's demise. One of the 7 angels who now has the 7 vials, perhaps the 7th angel, whose judgment remembered Babylon, came and spoke with John, telling him that if he would come with the angel would show him the judgment of the great harlot. It is important to note that judgment is not a verb, but a noun. This angel will show, future tense, to John what the future holds for this harlot, what her future existence, her state of judgment will be. Why a woman? Some might be thinking, why is this evil entity depicted as a woman and not a man? Well, throughout the Codex, women, who represent the glory of mankind, are symbolized as having a level of spirituality that men simply do not. And for their part, men have always had a level of extreme vulnerability when it comes to women. Accordingly, the serpent approached Eve and not Adam. And it was Eve who convinced Adam to partake and not the serpent. It is this level of spiritual vulnerability that led the Spirit to say to the church at Corinth that women should wear a covering as a sign that they are submitted to a spiritual authority because of the angels. In other words, their spiritual vulnerability needs to be protected by one who is not as susceptible. It's a metaphor, a picture of our need to be protected by Christ from spiritual manipulations. He is to be our covering of protection. The female imagery is used often all throughout the book of Proverbs, where women are used to contrast 2 spiritual principles: wisdom versus wickedness. Even the famed Proverbs 31 woman is a picture, a metaphor about wisdom expressed in action. And since Jesus is the wisdom of God, we know that this picture of wisdom personified as a woman is a picture of Christ as he is expressed in and through our lives. And like the woman who rides the beast, wisdom is the only other woman in the Codex that deals with both scarlet and purple clothing. All her household are dressed in scarlet. The children of wisdom are appointed for sacrifice. And she is clothed with purple linen, the color of royalty. Wisdom personified as a woman is Christ as he indwells and expresses himself through his people. In contrast, wickedness personified as a woman is none other than the harlot, this woman who rides the beast. She represents spiritual apostasy and spiritual licentiousness as it indwells in the heart, minds, and souls of people. In the Codex, we are given another image of wickedness embodied, and it is in the form of a woman. The prophet Zechariah had a vision where the woman, wickedness, is being carried by 2 female angelic beings. They had wings like a stork, to build a temple for this woman in the land of Shinar, or Babylon, where she'll be set there on her own pedestal. This is the woman who rides the beast, the embodiment of wickedness and abominations, whose abode is the great city of religious apostasy. Why a harlot? Come here. I will in the future show you the judgment of the great harlot, who now chooses to be sitting on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed acts of immorality, and those who are now dwelling on the earth were caused to be made drunk with the wine of her immorality. Like a harlot, or in some translations, a prostitute, this woman gives herself to all who will have her. And as for her, it's a matter of choice, not compulsion. No one is forcing her to prostitute herself. She now chooses to be sitting on many waters, which according to the code would be upon many peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. Her influence is global, and she impacts all segments of society. Her influence occurs in every moment of now. As mentioned previously, the imagery of the harlot is used in the Codex as a contrast to wisdom, and as a picture of those who refuse the intimacy and love of the Father, and instead give themselves to the harlot, and in so doing, engage in sexual immorality with other gods. The harlot represents spiritual apostasy and spiritual licentiousness, as it indwells in the hearts, mind, and souls of people who have tasted her wine and who drink and drink and drink. Proverbs 5:3-6. For the lips of an adulteress drip honey, and smoother than oil is her speech. But in the end, she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps take hold of Sheol. She does not ponder the path of life, and her ways are unstable. She does not know it. Proverbs 6:23-26. For the commandment is a lamp and the teaching is light, and reproofs for discipline are the way of life to keep you from the evil woman, from the smooth tongue of the adulteress. Do not desire her beauty in your heart, nor let her capture you with her eyelids. For on account of a harlot, one is reduced to a loaf of bread, and an adulteress hunts for the precious life. Proverbs 7:4-5 and verses 24-27. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your intimate friend, that they may keep you from an adulteress, from the foreigner who flatters with her words. Now therefore, my sons, listen to me and pay attention to the words of my mouth. Do not let your heart turn aside to her ways, and do not stray in her paths. For many are the victims she has cast down, and numerous are all her slain. Her house is the way to Sheol, descending to the chambers of death. Proverbs 9:13-18. The woman of folly is boisterous. She is naive and knows nothing. She sits at the doorway of her house, on a seat by the high places of the city, calling to those who pass by, who are making their path straight. Whoever is naive, let him turn in here. And to him who lacks understanding, she says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he does not know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of Sheol. The harlot of spiritual apostasy is always looking for those who will give in to her call, who will lust for all that she has to give to them. And what we will find is that once a person indulges in her sexual proclivities, it's very hard to escape. She is intoxicating. The kings of the earth, with whom the kings of the earth committed acts of immorality. We were first introduced to this phrase, kings of the earth, in Revelation chapter 1, verse 5, where we were told that Jesus, the firstborn of the dead, is the ruler or the prince of the kings of the earth. This is a non-Hebraic way of saying that Jesus is Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts, the commander of the angelic forces, the Elohim, the gods who have been given charge or rule over the territories of the earth. The kings of the earth are ruled by higher level spirit princes, but they have been assigned by Yahweh territory over which they rule humanity. These kings of the earth are those mentioned in Psalm 2, where the angelic rulers who take counsel together against Yahweh and his anointed, which means the Messiah or the Christ, saying, let us tear their fetters apart and cast their cords from us. The kings of the earth plot to gain their freedom from their master, their prince, their ruler, Yahweh Sabaoth. After all, it is likely that they too know the prophecy. He will cut off the spirit princes. He is feared by the kings of the earth. So how have these kings of the earth committed acts of immorality with the harlot? Think about it. In every territory that these kings rule, they have permitted the so-called gods, who, as we have learned, are just demons in disguise. He's permitted them to be worshipped and honored within their territory. They have provided the platform for the demonic to introduce all manner of idolatry into the realms of humanity. Who knows, maybe they too have taken on the form of a god to be worshipped by humanity, from the gods of Egypt to Baal, Ashtoreth, Milcom, Molech, Chemosh, to the golden cows of Samaria and Dan, to Apollo, Ares, Athena, Hera, Hermes, Zeus, to the pantheon of Hindu gods, to Allah, to Mary, the Queen of Heaven, to the thousands of incarnations of Jesus that are worshipped across the religion of Christianity. These kings of the earth have joined with this harlot, the woman who rides the beast, and thereby committed acts of immorality. Intoxication. And those who are now dwelling on the earth were caused to be made drunk with the wine of her immorality. It's important that we do not miss the meaning of this message. Sharing a cup of wine is simply a picture of mutual intimacy and shared experience between people. It expresses an agreement or a covenant of relationship between those who share the cup. It's a similar picture to Christians taking communion. When believers take communion, they share in a cup that symbolizes a covenant and an act of intimate fellowship between a person and God and all those who share in the cup. The wine is a picture of that which binds the covenant, which in the context of communion is the blood of Jesus. Sharing a cup is a declaration of shared association and allegiance. In the context of the harlot, the wine which binds the covenant, association, or allegiance is sexual immorality, which is code for idolatry and the worship of demons. Following the lead of the kings of the earth, those who are now dwelling, who have made their permanent abode on this earth, likewise drank until they were overcome, caused to be made drunk with the wine of her idolatry. Make no mistake, this woman is sensual and is intoxicating. Her invitation to abide in her immorality, her idolatry, is hard to resist, for her aged vintage of wine is a concoction of spiritual apostasy. And like a prostitute, she does not care who her customer is, so long as they pay her. She sells her services, she sells her body for a price, and she has a worldwide clientele. The implication is that the kings of the earth, the spiritual rulers who are the powers behind their human counterparts, embrace her harlotry and in effect sponsor at a regional level, whether formally or informally, her activities so that the wine of her immorality becomes generally available to the masses, to the people who are looking for something, anything other than an actual relationship with Yahweh to provide their connection to the spiritual realm. Hence, she's just not an ordinary streetwalker. She attracts the kings of this world, and they come running into her doors and drink deep of her cup of sexual immorality. They have all committed sexual immorality with this woman. There is a sense here that this woman is so seductive and her drink is so intoxicating that all aspects of humanity are willing to walk in her doors and drink of her passion. The nations of the world are all built on the foundation of some sort of worship. Even the pagan and purely humanistic societies, which worship nature for its beauty and worship man for all his intellect and abilities, have drunk of her wine. It's in the very construct of mankind to worship. It's how God made us. The issue at hand is the object of that worship. We were designed to find fulfillment in Yahweh. But this harlot has seduced mankind to seek fulfillment in her embrace, her touch, her love, care, affection, safety, provision, security, rules, constructs, and grand assemblies. Clearly, she is not a woman that can just be used and tossed away as a sexual object. The people who indulge in her pleasures literally get drunk with her sexual immorality. That means they come back to her over and over again until they have completely lost themselves in her sexual exploits. The wine in her cup does more than sparkle in her cup. It stimulates lust, entices need, a craving, and it creates an insatiable desire, an addiction for her unique vintage. Those who drink never get enough. This is all captured in picture form in the Codex, in Proverbs chapter 23, verse 26 through 35. Give me your heart, my son, and let your eyes delight in my ways. For a harlot is a deep pit, and an adulterous woman is a narrow well. Surely she lurks as a robber and increases the faithless among men. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has contentions? Who has complaining? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? Those who linger long over wine, those who go to taste mixed wine. Do not look on the wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it goes down smoothly. At the last, it bites like a serpent and stings like a viper. Your eyes will see strange things, and your mind will utter perverse things. And you will be like one who lies down in the middle of the sea, or like one who lies down on the top of a mast. They struck me, but I did not become ill. They beat me, but I did not know it. When shall I awake? I will seek another drink." Clearly, sexuality and prostitution refer to spiritual infidelity. And with the odd coupling of this image to the drinking of wine, we know that this describes those who drink deeply from the insatiable cup of her immorality. Just think of those in the religion of Christianity who have become so drunk with this woman's concoction. It is the reason that throughout the centuries, there's always something new, some new way to do Christianity better, to serve God and to honor God. Her ways create an insatiable desire that is never quenched. When a certain way to control or to conquer sin does not work, don't worry. Another way will soon be promoted and publicized for all to embrace. It never ends. The relationship between the harlot, the beast, and Satan. There's one instance in the Codex, above all the others, which speaks ever so powerfully to this image of the harlot. It is found in the passage which speaks of Tyre and its king. Tyre represents the dangerous combination of religion, power, rule, money, and commerce. In fact, the kingdom of Tyre is a window into the kingdom of the beast, 666, and to this woman who rides the beast. The image of Tyre is even more compelling in terms of apocalyptic imagery when you realize that the king of Tyre is likened unto Satan, or more precisely, Satan is addressed through the human avatar of the king of Tyre. Beyond the metaphor, it's very likely that Satan was the motivating spirit behind this king. And when it comes to the beast, the dragon, Satan himself, is the source of the power behind his kingdom. Remember, Satan gives his power, throne, and great authority to the beast. Therefore, when the Spirit addresses the king of Tyre, we are given a layered picture of both Satan and ultimately the kingdom of the beast. But let's save that for our next podcast, where things will not just get bizarre, but they will blow your mind in terms of the connection to ancient Tyre and many things in our modern political system. Simply mind-blowing. I'm glad you tuned in and have been ready to listen. To get a free download of the full written transcript with all the scripture references footnoted, please go to threshermediagroup.com. That is THRESHER mediagroup.com. This is Steve with Thresher Media Group. When you're ready to listen, tune in.